Welcome to the Vitality Lounge, a place where the uncomfortable questions become comfortable, where conversations, topics, and expert guests unlock the keys to vitality, empowering you to embrace the vibrant life you deserve. Now here's your host, Micol.
Today's guest is an expert in the world of personalized medicine and hormone optimization. With over 30 years of experience, he is a compound pharmacist and an expert in men's health. So please help me welcome on the Vitality Lounge, Greg McKettrick. Men, this one is for you. Hi, Greg. Welcome to the Vitality Lounge.
Thank you so much. Very happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. So, Greg, I always like to start this podcast by asking what vitality means to you. So, what does it mean to you?
So, I guess if you go by the definition of vitality, it's energy and strength, vigor, which really sounds very physical, which I believe it is, but I think it also is wrapped up in attitude, in spirit. There's a poem by Dylan Thomas, very famous poem, and he talks about do not go quiet into that good night. Do not go gentle into that good night. I think that's, to me, kind of what it means. Don't just let go. Don't let life and age dictate to you how you're going to approach life. Always attack and always go after it. And be the best you can be. So I think vitality is about an energy that is embodied in not just your physicality, but in your cognitive function, in your spirit, and in your ability to love. So I think that vitality is a very broad meanings for a number of things.
An all-encompassing word. That's what I love about it, because it has so many different meanings. When I ask this, everyone has different answers, and it's so nice to hear. But everyone agrees on the fact that it's not just one thing. It's life. It's everything, right? So, Greg, you've been a pharmacist for over, I say 30 years, but if we want to say the 20 maybe. And oh no, we don't want to say that.
Yeah, you can say it. It's okay. Hey, it's all right. I'm proud of it. I'll be honest with you. There's not too many of us that can actually say that and say that they still have a lot of passion for what they do. So I'm very proud of that.
And that's vitality too, right? Having passion for what you do. That's what drives you as well in your work. So tell me a little bit more about your journey in that and how it developed into compounding pharmacist, because that's also different, right?
Yeah. And, just as a background, there's probably nothing in terms of the profession of pharmacy that I have not done. I have worked clinically, I have worked in retail, I have worked in nursing homes. I've even, helped out on occasion working in a prison pharmacy. And, one of the things that I found early on was that, my passion was for really helping people. And I used to tell new graduates or new hires coming in, I said, I want you to imagine that each patient is my mother, let alone your own mother. Because if you don't take care of my mother the way you should, I'm going to be after you, right? So I always told people that. And then what happened with the profession of pharmacy, there was a lot of change where things just went away from personal care and from the attention that we could pay to patients. And it really, for me, became very frustrating because when you were not given the resources necessary so that you could help that individual the way you really felt you should, then I felt that I really was not fulfilling what my real vision of pharmacy was. And that led me to compounding because, compounding is a different animal and it is really, people talk about compounders as kind of like the old time apothecary where they see you grinding up and mixing things together. And certainly, that is what the physical definition of compounding is. But the more, I guess, appropriate way of thinking of it, compounders are problem solvers. So there's a reason we need to compound. It's because there are not commercially available products that are suitable for all patients.
A
So
very
whether that
personalized approach.
exactly, you have to look at it. What's that particular individual need? And maybe it's nothing different than changing dosage forms or the base that it came in or what the fillers are or the additives. Um, that is where you can really focus in and make huge differences, make all the difference in terms of the outcomes for the patients.
Yeah. Yeah. So how is compounding so much more powerful, for example, than just simply going to a counter's desk and getting a prescription? How is that different? And how do people connect to you and understand if there's a compounding pharmacist close to them?
That's well, the second part of your question is great because there are so many people that I talk to, and I do talks all over the country. I actually talk with folks in different countries as well, but a lot of folks have never heard of compounding. They don't know what it is
Exactly.
or where you go. So, there has to be a little bit of information. There also has to be, unfortunately, some of that is the responsibility of the patient to actually be able to find it or seek it out. Compounding really is designed as specialized therapy for the individual needs. I will use a particular example and then I'll kind of fine tune it. But, a few years ago, I was approached by a group and they all had a condition. It's called alpha-gal syndrome. And for those who are not aware, alpha-gal is basically a animal protein allergy, meat allergy, whatever you like to call it. It starts typically with the bite of a Lone Star tick, which then causes that patient not to be able to metabolize animal proteins. Well, what we don't understand is that there are so many things that are in medicines in general that are animal derived, whether they be fillers or the gelatin for a capsule, the colors, you name it. And, for a lot of those patients, things that you would look at and think, this is not going to cause anybody any problem. It's a white tablet that came from the corner drugstore. And in reality, that tablet may have up to 95% ingredients that are in some way active and could potentially cause a problem.
Yeah.
So these patients started coming in because they couldn't take commercial products. And they would literally come and say, is there any way that you can compound my medication without animal protein? So again, that was a different situation for me. It actually drove me into doing a lot of research and doing presentations on that. But in general, what we're doing is we're looking at where there are failings in terms of what's available through commercial products and sometimes through traditional medicine. So, one of the things about compounding, we work with obviously a lot of different types of doctors. A lot of doctors really are not familiar with it. So again, sometimes we have to educate the doctors.
Yeah.
But the things that we offer, when I do presentations, and I do a lot of presentations on hormone optimization and on men's health, and a lot of the things that I will really get deep on in terms of the education side are the options and combinations and approaches and routes of delivery that are just not available to commercial patients or commercial products. So it's really about laying things out where there are huge advantages in terms of how medicine is delivered, what forms, what combinations, and how that can be tailored to an individual's needs.
If I'm a patient or if I'm just someone that is interested in this, can I just look up compound pharmacy near me, or do I have to be connected to a doctor that then drives me to this?
No, so, and again, to be perfectly honest, a lot of times it's really best if you do contact the compounding pharmacy first. And one of the things that I spend a lot of time with is talking with patients about their overall conditions, but they may have a particular situation, whether it be hormone optimization, sexual function, or again, some other condition that they've struggled with, weight loss, whatever the case might be, and they don't really know where to go. So by talking to someone like myself or a compounding pharmacist first, now they can have a much better idea of what the landscape looks like, what is available, and a lot of times that compounding pharmacy can direct them to the physicians who really are more in tune, who are more likely to understand what they're looking for, are more willing to work with compounding pharmacies. And unfortunately, a lot of doctors who work for large organizations or hospital groups or that sort of thing, it's unfortunate, but a lot of them basically, I call it the kiddie menu. So, they
Yeah.
basically have a formulary that they can prescribe from that is really not going to include all of the options that are available for the patient. So sometimes actually looking up and starting that conversation. I have my own website that people can go to if they have questions, but there's ways that you can find out, hey, this is my condition. This is what I've tried in the past. What would be suggested? What is available for me? And then not only can we talk to them about what the therapies are, but we can also really direct them, whether that be through a local physician or our own telehealth platforms, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, so it's practically really a consultation based on I've tried things, they've kind of worked, but not really, and I want more of a personalized approach. This is one of the ways you could get that and get potentially better results, or most probably, because something that we talk about, and I've talked about also with other guests on the podcast, is nowadays, like, my lifestyle is not your lifestyle. My how I grew up, what I eat, the activities I do are not the same as yours, Greg. And so a prescription that works for you most probably won't work for me. And having that personalization aspect is key. And every body is so different. We all function so differently that you need to customize. You can't just be like, okay, menu, this, check, go, and you expect it to work. You said you did a lot of hormone replacement therapies, men's health, sexual wellness. Tell me a little bit about that. I think it's a topic that is being talked about more, but there's still a lot of kind of taboo, like, do I go hormones, not? What is men's performance and sexual wellness? Let's talk about that a little more.
So, and again, when I talk about I'm going to just use for men as an example. Many men are very call it the blinders on, or very tunnel visioned, and they think the only thing that impacts them is testosterone. So you hear about this, and you hear it on all these advertisements for these testosterone replacement clinics and that sort of thing, which is great because obviously with age, our bodies produce less of the essential hormones that we really need for vitality and for longevity.
Yeah.
But there's so much more because testosterone, obviously that's going to give you energy, mental clarity, reduce the brain fog, maintain muscle and bone density, and maintain your libido. So you say that and you think, oh, great, this is going to fix sexual function. Well, no, it really doesn't, because the testosterone alone does not actually fix ED or vascular degenerative diseases that really are very intrinsic with sexual function. And then, we need to talk about, what about the supplements? What about vitamins? What about the other hormones that are included in the hormone cascade? So many of these people will talk about testosterone replacement. They'll never talk about things for blood flow, things for, the vitamins, the necessary vitamins, vitamin D, magnesium. They won't consider the fact that, the body is a amazing machine.
Yeah.
That, if you start filling it up with excess testosterone, it's going to perceive that as a problem. So now we're going to convert that to other hormones, which may be detrimental to the patient. So we really have to focus on everything. It's not one isolated issue. What is the total picture for the patient, and what's their history? What comorbidities? What other medications are they using? A lot of those things will actually contribute. And, sometimes we can find some very, very workable answers by taking all of that into consideration and remembering this is not a one size fits all. You can't just slap some testosterone on somebody and say, you're good, have a great day. It's more complicated.
Yeah, there's these trends that go around, right? Like you have testosterone now is really big, or these men's clinics, which is great that they started opening up and being present. But then not necessarily do you need to go on testosterone. Your
Right.
need might be totally different, right?
Yep.
Maybe it's, as you said, a circulation problem, a blood flow problem. And that comes from totally different areas of life. And you require a different treatment for it
Sure.
so that it can actually activate that. So if we look at the spectrum of things that a man that is maybe in his 40s, 50s has seen, like a bit of that downflow of libido, or just sexual performance is not as it used to be, what are kind of the steps that you would guide them through, or that you would bring them into to I don't want to say treat, because it's not necessarily it's not necessarily something that needs to be treated, but prevention potentially, or just something that can improve their performance.
So interestingly enough, and you are spot on by saying, historically it's men in their 40s, late 40s, 50s who are presenting. The problem that we see today is that that demographic has shifted, and we're seeing much younger populations come in.
Yeah.
And the notable reasons for this are lifestyle diseases, obesity, very, very non-energetic lifestyles, uh, poor diet, substance use. And then you think in terms of, well, what else are we seeing a lot of? We're seeing a lot of people that, they're going through and they're being treated for depression or sleep. And see a huge onset of adult onset diabetes in much younger populations. So you look at all this and you go, wow, what is all going on? So when this individual comes in, so they have some basic complaints. So you're trying to address it, but what you have to look at is what their whole history is. What's their exercise profile look
Mhm.
like? What's their diet look like? How is their weight? Because people who are carrying a lot of extra weight, man, that is a spark plug for all of
Yes.
these different lifestyle diseases. So sometimes the chief complaint is, my energy's bad. I think my testosterone's low. Okay, let's look, because guess what? If we start addressing weight, if we start addressing diet, if we start addressing exercise, God, I don't sound like a pharmacist, do I? Because I'm not mentioning drugs right off the top
Yes.
here. I'm talking about how do we really optimize wellness for
Yeah.
a patient.
Yeah.
Once you start to kind of eliminate some of these factors, or at least improve them,
Yeah.
then you really can gain a lot of insight in terms of how to focus therapy for that patient. Where are we going to see the best outcome? And a lot of times it's comes through combination of kind of changing some of these different modalities that they're experiencing.
Yeah. Greg, the more I talk to experts in the field, the more I just realize how it goes back to the most simple things. It's not necessarily having to add things to your daily routine, like pills and
Right.
techniques or therapies, but rather remove things that are
Yeah.
bad for you first. And you mentioned that, and I've spoken to other experts as well. It's really bringing it back to the basics. Are you exercising? What are you eating? How are you fueling your body? Are you an active person? How is your mental state? These are things that theoretically are the basics of life, but
Mhm.
we have lost that touch with ourselves, with our bodies. Society, stress is a huge factor as well, I believe, in sexual performance, if that's what we're talking about right now, but in general in life, like diseases as well. So it's
Sure.
just kind of reconnecting to that. And then once you've reconnected and once you've cleaned up, can you add to improve? But you can't just add. It won't work,
No.
because it's like you're overstimulating your body with all of these different things. but they're not doing anything. It's like, and then you end up being like, oh, it didn't work for me. Well, why? Let's
Right.
go back. So I find that fascinating.
Hey everyone, I've had some of you ask me, Vitality Lounge powered by GAINSWave. But what is GAINSWave? Well, let me tell you. GAINSWave is the leading regenerative solution for him, her, and recovery. If you're ready to feel more alive in your body, GAINSWave uses safe, non-invasive acoustic wave therapy that boosts blood flow, sensitivity, performance, relief, and healing without pills, needles, or downtime. Absolutely pain-free and under 15 minutes. Restore performance from the inside out and reclaim your spark with GAINSWave. So if you're ready to go deeper into pleasure, connection, and peak performance, go to gainswave.com and find a provider near you today. Embrace vitality.
Yeah, and I think that the more we can educate the population, the more we can get patients to understand that really and truly there's reasons, there's very simple reasons in a lot of cases why we just don't feel good. We feel lethargic. We're gaining weight. We're predisposed to being very, I won't call it lazy, but just not a very active lifestyle.
I think
And
lazy is very appropriate. I
I
think we've all
know, but
gotten a little lazier somehow.
I hate to do that only because, if the person chooses that that's how they're going to be, but a lot of times they just don't understand this is a cascade of different
That's true.
events that have really fed into that. So, you know, I will use an example, with libido and sexual function. For a lot of people, men and women both,
Yeah.
If from a sexual function they have an inability or they're challenged in terms of being able to perform, well, that influences libido. Because if I can't perform or it's not enjoyable, I'm not going to be interested. I'm not going to have great sex drive.
Of course.
So just doing something to increase libido is not going to necessarily fix what's the underlying problem. In the same way, saying lazy, well, okay, what's going on? Why are we like this? Because we know if you eat better, if you exercise, if you hydrate, if you laugh, if you, again, there's so many different things that happen that should happen throughout the course of the day to really lift our spirit and kind of build our soul that, you take care of your body and a lot of that will follow. So,
Yeah.
I resist putting that kind of a tag on people because I think sometimes
Yeah.
that's a byproduct of
Yeah.
kind of a bigger picture.
No, you're right. I agree with that. That's a very good way of putting it out there. Ultimately, yes, lazy can be a choice, but then it's what if you don't know any better?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So if I've done most of the steps to cleaning up my
Mhm.
body, so to say, but I still lack an energy, or I actually want to prevent. Maybe I'm a little younger now. I'm 30, right?
Mhm.
And I know that as I age, things get a little rougher because still aging is a part of the process. How can I prevent, or how can I stay on top of my energy levels at peak? I know there's potentially, again, we want to make sure that it's not we suggest something and then you go and get it, but what are things that kind of treat the root cause that can benefit in vitality? There's a lot of talk around, for example, nitric oxide, and I know you work a lot around that. Shockwave therapy to bring circulation, all of these things are things that are actually more treating the root cause rather than just supplementing in a way that or just taking a pill. We all know the blue pill, like it's just
Right.
a moment, right?
And the bottom line is, like you said, blue pill and shockwave, and obviously for both men and women, but we'll look at it this way. The aging process is as you age, hormone production,
Yep.
circulatory function, nitric oxide production, they're going in the opposite direction. So
Yep.
nitric oxide is a great example because this is something that, if we all ate farm to table if we were all eating beets and spinach and arugula and celery every meal, we'd all have great natural endogenous nitric
Yeah.
oxide. The problem is we don't. And as we age, just like hormone production falls off, nitric oxide production falls off. Now, statistically, what we look at by age 40, endogenous nitric oxide production drops to about 50%, 50. By age 50, it's down to about 35%. By age 60, it's down to 15%. That is your statistical averages. The problem is, due to diet, due to satiety, due to, again, lifestyle diseases, we actually see that shift much earlier. Most of the folks that I work with are in the 50 plus range because I'm treating a lot of hormone deficiency and sexual dysfunction. So that's kind of the demographic that I work with. The problem is when I'm starting to see people in their 20s and people in their 30s show up, and they are presenting with a profile that looks like someone who's in their 50s. So what do? Let's go back to the basics. Let's do some, the testing to see. Very simple, saliva test. We can tell exactly as far as nitric oxide production. And, we can address it with dietary means, which would be wonderful. Unfortunately, I don't know too many people that eat that way anymore. Not just because it's inconvenient to have to go and eat very fresh and green. It's expensive. Yeah. And it takes time. So for a lot of folks, taking a supplement where they take a good nitric oxide supplement, a dietary nitric oxide supplement, really will replenish that and take care of it for them. And that really addresses circulatory function in general. So we see improvements in cognitive function, glucose metabolism, cardiac function, certainly, sexual function, neuropathies, respiratory function, immune function, gut health. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I always tell people, I said, if you can tell me one of our body's metabolic functions that doesn't benefit from better oxygenation, then you win the booby prize, because I don't know what it is. So again, that's something that's very easy that we can address for almost any patient. Yeah. And then, from there, what else can we look at? So I'm a big advocate of treating the patient and not just the numbers, but doing a basic panel, looking at what labs are showing us in terms of hormone levels and that sort of thing. I use a simple analogy. If I twisted my ankle and went to the emergency room and the doctor was going to put a cast on me without doing an x-ray, I would probably really question that treatment. Yeah. So in the same manner, before we're going to jump in and start advising patients on changing things or adding things or, going on hormone therapy, whatever the case might be, you have to understand what's going on really at the base. So yeah. Getting a good picture of the inner workings, the hormone levels, vitamin levels, those sorts of things, extremely important. So, you want to know the patient as far as that goes. So, what do you do first? Again, let's talk with someone who works with this, because they can advise you. They can usually do some point of contact testing. If not, they will certainly refer you so that you get the appropriate labs done. And then based on that, now we have the real background on that patient. We have the x-ray, right? So now we can forecast and develop a plan that will be beneficial.
Yeah. Isn't there also like kind of different types of nitric oxide? And you want to make sure, and this is in general, I think with all supplements, we talk about, well, vitamin B or just a lot of supplements that you want to add to your diet, but you want to make sure you're taking the right one, because not every vitamin B is the same, nor is every nitric oxide. So maybe if you want to punctuate and kind of showcase which ones or what people should be looking into in order to identify whether it's an appropriate supplement or not.
Yeah. Excellent question, because that is probably one of the most misunderstood factors. It's like everything else. I mean, you can walk into your vitamin store or go on Amazon and, buy nitric oxide. Is it really suitable for what you need? And, for a lot of patients who are younger, who are, in their 20s or 30s, they may be fine. If they go out, there's one form of the nitric oxide supplements, they're based off of amino acids. So we're talking about L-arginine and citrulline, pycnogenol, a lot of the pre-workout things that guys will use, or women too. Uh, those powders and that, they usually have those things. And a lot of the supplements that you're going to see on Amazon are very similar. And if you are younger, those are okay because the body will convert that. That basically, they all feed into L-arginine. L-arginine goes through a metabolic conversion. It goes through what's called the NOS pathway, or nitric oxide synthase pathway. And then your body can use the nitric oxide from there. The problem is around age 40 to 45, that pathway breaks down. So about the time we're seeing this real drop off in endogenous production, the ability to actually convert those amino acids into systemic nitrates, it starts to really be challenged. Therefore, someone who's in their later 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond, they're not going to benefit really from taking an L-arginine type product. It just won't work as well. So we want to get them on a dietary product, which again, using something that's really based using the dietary form. So whether that's like a beetroot, something that's going to give, like eating spinach, that sort of thing. So, your good nitrate rich vegetables, we want to see some incorporation from that as far as the source is concerned. Those don't go through that same metabolic pathway. So I think Berkeley Life is a great example because, again, that is something within 90 minutes, your body converts it to a systemic form of nitric oxide that is fully available and functional. The good thing is those dietary nitric oxide supplements, they're good for any age. Mm-hmm. So, even if you are 20 and heading to the gym, it's going to give you the pump. It's going to give you what you want, yes. But it is also effective and appropriate for someone who's 70 or 80 or 90 because their body will absorb that. And again, it is readily available source of nitrates for them.
So in a general scale, if I'm in my 30s and I want to prevent and cure, what are kind of the 3 to 5 things I should do in order to set myself to the best future possible?
Diet, exercise, and sleep.
That,
I mean, those are really, yeah. I mean, that's really the basics. If we all ate perfectly, then we really wouldn't have an issue. When you don't, when there are deficiencies in your diet, then let's talk about where can we benefit from good, really good supplements that can replace some of what's lacking in our diet. Exercise. An object at rest stays at rest. So the more we move, the more active we are. Weight-bearing exercise, cardiovascular exercise, being able to really maintain and get the blood flow pumping and keep that going. That not only maintains the body, it maintains the mind. It's very well known that if you are suffering, if you're going through a extreme period of stress, movement actually is one of the best solutions to really rid yourself of stress, because you burn through that, you get the endorphins going, you get the oxygenation in your body, and again, it does help to eliminate that. And then sleep, one of the biggest killers of really good health. If your sleep cycle is not appropriate, then you start getting into all kinds of other issues. So those are 3 basic lifestyle things. So how do we do that and then carry it over? Like I said, if we're lacking in some of these, that's where, we can look at what the underlying issues are. Sometimes, it's very difficult to regulate things like cortisol levels. The sleep certainly impacts that, but sometimes there's other things impacting it as well. So, we just have to make sure that we incorporate more than just the good lifestyle. So good supplements, and then, hey, as we're aging, 30, great health, keep it going, exercise, eat well, hydrate well, and you're going to stave off a lot of the problems that potentially could affect you. But as you age and hormone levels are starting to diminish, we want to be focused on that as well, because, nobody ever said that it was beneficial to have our hormone levels and nitric oxide levels dropping.
Yeah.
It's beneficial if they're optimized. So just because we're getting older doesn't mean we have to grow old. We
Yes.
can we can live well as we age, so long as we actually maintain our system.
Preach. Absolutely. Greg, what are you most excited about the direction of healthcare and medicine right now?
Um, I think the biggest thing is patient awareness. I think that, from my position, a lot of it has to do with the conversation has jumped more to the forefront. So whether it be hormones, whether it be sexual function, a lot of that just wasn't discussed in years past. Women would talk about hormone levels and going through menopause and perimenopause, premenopause. Men didn't. So, men maybe with their buddies, they talk about testosterone. Very rarely would anybody have a conversation about sexual dysfunction.
Yeah.
And, some of the things I think, for better or for worse, I think that, there's been a push towards acceptance and normalcy with the conversation brought forth a lot by a lot of these online companies,
Mhm.
which, I'm grateful to them for the fact that they have really kind of taken the stigma away from talking about sexual dysfunction. Um, but a lot of those online companies, and again, the Hims, the Romans, the Rugias, all those, they don't really offer all the full complement that what we've been discussing. Really, how do you
Yeah.
really help the whole patient? But what they have done is made it much more common
Mhm.
for patients. Now I am very frequently asked, hey, I saw a ad on Facebook or on Amazon or on TV for such and such. Do you have that? That is a great way to kind of bridge that. So I
Yeah.
think that there's certainly advances that are being made in terms of therapies. I'm very, very hopeful that we see some change from the FDA in terms of acceptance of peptides because, boy, oh man, peptides are phenomenal in
Yeah.
terms of what they offer and really what they can do for people for so many different conditions. Just that right now they're literally looked at as taboo by the FDA,
Yes.
so they won't approve it. So again, how do we bring the limelight? How do we really bring attention to that to where we can focus on it and offer it? For myself, we are on a daily basis where we're really looking into formulating more beneficial and customized supplements as well as the treatments that we use. I get asked all the time, where did you come up with an idea for this particular compound? Like, because I'm told that it's needed. And again, this
Mhm.
goes back to the root of what compounding is, where someone brings to your attention a deficit, and then, hey, let's put the mad scientist hat on and figure out how can we address this? What components can we bring together? So, new compounds, peptides, nanotechnology, things that are going to really improve the ability to get medications into the system, new
Yeah.
delivery modes. So, there's so much that I'm excited by, new technologies, even some of the new therapies. We talk about shockwave therapy. So, do a lot of work with the GAINSWave folks, and the ability to stimulate blood vessels and to regenerate, to reestablish good, healthy blood flow. Obviously, I focus a lot on sexual wellness, but overall. So, how can we complement that? What
Yeah.
what actually ties in with that? Well, you already brought it up. Nitric oxide. That's a great complement because if we can increase that circulatory function, now we're going to maximize and really uh, do the best we can to optimize the vascular bed so that we get the circulatory function and the blood flow. And then we have commercial medications. I probably one that I advocate for both men and women more than anything, tadalafil, daily tadalafil, simply because it lasts so long in the body. And now you've got something like that. It needs that nitric oxide to function properly.
Yeah.
And then add physical therapy using like a penile pump or a vacuum erection device that forces the body to engorge, to reestablish perfusion into that tissue and now complement that with the shockwave, the GAINSWave therapy. You're basically building layers, and this is how I approach therapy with my patients. It's not a one size fits all, and one treatment, generally speaking, isn't going to be the cure. So what do you try to do? How do you get the best outcomes for the patient? You layer in these modalities so that physiologically and anatomically you give them the ingredients. You're basically putting the ingredients to bake that cake and make it as good as possible.
Yeah.
Now you incorporate the devices and the treatments like that shockwave so that it will be even more beneficial. We're going to augment the effect of that. We're going to develop this routine of being able to use these complementary therapies in ways that really change that patient outcome. So
Yeah.
I like to think of things in terms of let's get rid of some of the stuff that's hurting people, statins and some of these things where God, one of the things that drives me nuts is watching television where they're literally they're advertising a medication to treat the side effects of another medication. And
I
I think,
hate that. Like the fact that there's just, why are you taking medication and then you need to take on top of that another medication and then wait, there's going to be side effects to that one too. So maybe let's take another one. And that's the vicious cycle of a healthcare system that is broken and that we
right.
need to fix.
And
So I'm
that's
sorry I
why,
interrupted you, but I got
no,
really
you're great
passionate
because
right there.
I like to talk to the choir because the bottom line with this is maybe I'm a pharmacist that's somewhat anti-medicine, I guess. I would rather look at holistically what's going on
Yes.
with the body, and really address those core issues. And this is how we do it. Again,
Yeah.
really reestablish health, reestablish healthy tissue, good healthy blood flow, circulatory function, and then we can tie so many other things into that.
Yeah. Greg, I kind of want to do a bit of a call out here because we've focused a lot on men's health. And I think it's important that everyone understands that it's one more common than what people think. Like sexual wellness, ED treatments, like this is not something that you're alone out there.
Right.
There's a majority of, say majority, but a good amount of people out there that are in your same position. And
Yeah.
so don't be afraid. And I think that's the positive that you were saying. Like it's not as taboo anymore. Open
Right.
up. There's a lot of these men's clinics. There's a lot of people like yourself, or companies that really address this. And it's okay. It's part of where we are and what we do. So, and you're not alone. That's kind of my first thing that I want to put out there. And the second thing that I think is really important, and actually I was impressed by or just shocked by, if we want to say so, is when you start seeing effects in your potential performance issues or anything like that, it might be the signal of a bigger cause behind, and it could be one of the symptoms of potential cardiovascular risk. So I'm not saying it might be connected 100%, but it is there. And so don't take it lightly, not only from an aspect of my manlyhood potentially, but just, hey, your body is trying to tell you something. Go get checked. Go. It's part of, there's a system for it, and you shouldn't be afraid to go and ask for help.
Yeah. And I again, jokingly, in most of my presentations, I include a comment that, prior to 1998, there was no such thing as erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, right. It never existed.
No, I mean, Viagra hit the market and all of a sudden there was erectile dysfunction.
Mhm.
Nobody ever heard of it before that, right? No, I mean, we did. We just didn't have great tools to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, the advent of the PDE5 inhibitors really was a huge moment in terms of awareness, but that also opened up the door for many other things because, as you said, we call erectile dysfunction, and again, it's called the canary in the coal mine. And for those who aren't familiar with that term, back when, more prevalently, guys were going down in coal mines and there was a lot of toxic gas. There were things that would be emanated from that process of mining. So they would bring a canary down because there would be, what would be carbon monoxide, other gases that would be released. And that canary, as soon as it sensed it, would fall over.
Mhm.
Well, that's your signal, man, we got a problem. We got to get the heck out of here, right? Well, the fact that now we're having conversations about ED in men, well, ED is the canary in the coal mine for heart disease
Yeah.
because the same factors that cause vaso-occlusive disease, that cause buildup of plaque, which cause reduction in circulatory function and blood flow, they're related to both systems. The thing is, the blood vessels and the systems that actually maintain sexual function, there's smaller blood vessels, it's finer network, so they respond quicker to any kind of a physiological challenge. But guess what? If it's happening there, it's probably happening in the heart too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of this, and again, goes into cognitive function, Alzheimer's disease, all these different things that we can look at, but you're 100% right, because now, hey, let's look at the fact that what we're seeing really could be part of a much bigger mechanism
Yeah.
that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Greg, if anyone is interested in looking you up or learning more about what you do, where can they find you?
Well, I manage Men's Health. I'm the Men's Health Clinical Liaison with Revelation Pharma. That's a network of compounding pharmacies around the country. I also am doing a good bit of work with obviously with GAINSWave folks. We've done some webinars and talking things. My website, which just again, it was designed because I do so much work with men with prostate cancer. It's called penilerehabprotocol.com. And you can see a lot of the things that I've discussed already. There's ways where you can get directly in touch with me through that. And that's a great avenue as well. And I'd be happy. You're certainly welcome to share my contact information because I'd love people to get it. Because again, I think that number one thing that can benefit patients more than anything is information.
Yes.
So
that's why we do this podcast as well.
That's right. My website is a resource page for patients so that they can find information without, going down into these, Google searches where they deep dive into these dark holes and get bad info. So, I mean, that's a great way to find me. And again, bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, is really, if we can provide really good information, making it easily accessible to patients and providers for that matter,
yeah, then
we actually have the key that we need to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I always like to finish the podcast with a word of advice or a motto. We've actually given a lot of word of advices here, but kind of a life motto that you live by, Greg. Not necessarily you want to teach or educate, but mostly that is part of your life and that you want to share with our audience.
My motto and the thing that I try to I guess infuse into all of my counseling and all sessions I do, live harder. And by live harder, I'm not saying go be a stone out there and no emotions. I'm talking about embrace life and be full and attack it and optimize your health so that, again, we're not talking about growing old, we're talking about aging well. And by doing so, being able to not only enjoy a good, healthy lifestyle, but enjoy a sexual lifestyle. Sex is wonderful and it should be maintained throughout our lives. Intimacy is essential to our lives.
Yes.
So, go out and really attack it. Like I said, do not go gently into that good night. Go out there and attack life with a vigor. And if you're needing help getting to that point, call me. Because again, to me, if we can drive that message home to people, really live harder, go for it, and continue doing it. Don't stop. Get off the damn couch and come on, let's get active.
I love that. I'm going to finish it off here. Greg, thank you so much for being on the Vitality Lounge. It was a pleasure having you, and I think everyone will really benefit out of this conversation.
Thank you so very much.
You've been listening to the Vitality Lounge with Micol, powered by GAINSWave. Make sure to subscribe to the Vitality Lounge wherever you get your podcasts. GAINSWave is a clinically proven therapy that allows you to embrace vitality both in the bedroom and in your life. Whether to improve and boost performance, pleasure, and confidence, head on over to GAINSWave.com. Thanks for listening.